Hello, hi everybody, it's me, Elliott from ETJ English. Welcome to another British English, British pronunciation lesson, where today we are talking about food. Probably one of the biggest parts of my life at the moment, not being able to go outside and do things. My mind is always thinking, what food am I going to eat next? What will I cook next? What food will I order? Which restaurant will I order from next? So it made me think, perhaps I should make a lesson where we build some vocabulary, some idioms, some expressions, phrasal verbs, all around the topic of food and eating and drinking. I thought the best place to start was the difference between eat out and eat in. For many of you this is probably very simple, but when we eat out, that's when we go to a restaurant. Okay, we leave the house to eat. We eat out, outside of the house. And of course the opposite, eat in, means to have dinner at home. Now remember, eat in could also mean to have a takeaway. So not just to cook at home, but to have a takeaway. A takeaway traditionally means to order something on the phone and then we would pick it up, collect it and take it home. However, we often now even say takeaway when talking about delivery, from companies like Deliveroo or Uber Eats. That we could still call a takeaway. Remember that Americans tend to say take out, to get a takeout, but in the UK we say takeaway. So let's say I'm talking to my partner and she says to me, Elliot, should we eat in tonight? So, shall we eat in tonight? Yeah, sure. Do you fancy an Indian? Yeah, sure. Do you fancy an Indian? Now, fancy has many meanings. Fancy can mean to find someone attractive, but I don't think I'm asking my girlfriend, do you find this Indian man attractive? Instead, I am saying, do you fancy an Indian meal? We could also say, do you fancy a pizza? Do you fancy Chinese tonight? Okay, so do you fancy is a way of saying, do you want? So, do you fancy this tonight? What do you fancy? That's like saying, what do you want? But when we eat out and we go to a restaurant, we could go to a fancy restaurant, a posh restaurant. If a restaurant is fancy, then we probably need to dress smart and, it's probably very expensive. Or we could go to a chain. For example, a company which has multiple restaurants all over the world or all over the city. Now, as well as having a takeaway at home, we don't just have to have a takeaway. Of course, we can cook our own food, our own meal. And there are multiple things we could say. Let's start with the small things first. You could invite, at the moment you can't, but in the future you could invite some friends round for some nibbles. For example, I could say on the phone to my friend, do you want to come round for some nibbles tonight and watch the rugby? So nibbles are generally something you would have to eat when you are watching TV, perhaps there's a big event on like the rugby, and you would sit together and watch it and eat nibbles. So this would be things like crisps, remember Americans say chips, maybe some dips, some bread, hummus, these kinds of things, these kind of we call it nibbly food or nibbles. Small bits of food that we can snack on while we watch something. So, do you want to come round for some nibbles and drinks? Maybe even small sandwiches that you could make for people who come round. But let's say we are having a proper meal and it's a family meal. We have all of our family together and let's say I am hosting this meal. So it's my house and my family have come round. The first thing I'd want to do while I'm cooking and getting things ready would be to lay the table. To lay the table would be to put everything on the table. So of course we have things like plates, bowls. We also have what we call cutlery. Cutlery. This is knife, fork, spoon, okay, the things we use to eat. We also have placemats. Placemats are the square mats or the rectangular mats that we put the plates on to protect the table. And also we have the same thing for cups, right? We put a cup on something and this is called a coaster. Coaster. So we have coaster, placemat, cutlery. Usually it's kind of a tradition. I don't know if it's the same in your country. Some countries it is, some countries it isn't, from my experience, where we wait until everybody has their food and then we begin. So maybe before we all start eating, the host might want to say something to encourage everybody to start eating. The most common thing to say is probably tuck in. Tuck in. Tuck in. Notice my connected speech. I'm not saying tuck in, I'm saying tuck in. The words are joining together. Tuck in. So this just means go, start eating. Another common one is dig in. Dig in. Again, connecting my speech. Dig in. Dig in. Dig in. Or one which my dad uses a lot whenever I go to their house to eat, which is, come on guys, get stuck in. Get stuck in. I love this one. To get stuck in just means get going, begin, start, let's go. And it's like saying do it with energy. So we could say this to everyone before we start eating, but we could also say it about maybe beginning a project. Maybe we have an important project to do and we just need to get stuck in, get started, go. Now when I get stuck in to my food, I'm a fast eater. And what I tend to do is I scoff my food. Scoff. Scoff. So to scoff your food means to eat it really fast. There's a slang word people use which would be to inhale your food. Maybe your friend ate that dinner really, really fast. You could say to them, God, you inhaled that. So to inhale is to breathe in. So it's like he's just breathing in and all the food is flying down into his mouth. But if somebody is eating very slowly, so the opposite of scoffing their face, maybe you have a child who eats a bit slowly. And generally we'll say this to a child who's eating slowly. If we want them to eat their vegetables, we might say, come on, eat up. Eat up, meaning keep going, eat, eat, eat. It's like encouraging them to eat because you've noticed that they're not eating and we're encouraging them to eat more. Seconds. Oh, seconds. I love seconds. So when you finish your dinner, one of my favourite things to do is to go and see if there are any seconds or if I can have any seconds, which is basically when you go back up, you take your food and you fill up your plate again and have a second serving. We call it seconds. Difficult to pronounce this one. Seconds. It's that schwa sound at the end. Uns. And I got this question the other day on Instagram. Somebody said to me, Elliot, do British people say dessert or do they say pudding? To be honest, you can say either. There are kind of backgrounds and traditions as to, you'd say pudding about this type of food, but you'd say dessert about this type of food. If you want my complete honesty, I don't say pudding. I just say dessert. I'd say what's for dessert. I wouldn't say what's for pudding or what pudding do we have. I call it dessert, but in modern English, it's really fine just to say either. So just pick the one you like the sound of the most, really. Now, another good one is when we want to check everybody is finished. Now, we could say, is everybody finished? Okay. Or you can just say the word finished, but we don't just say finished, because that sounds like I'm just telling my listener that I have finished. Finished. Instead, we need to say finished, finished, finished. Okay, so this intonation, this kind of rising intonation, it shows that we're asking a question. Okay, so you can see how we can change the meaning of a word by changing the intonation. Finished? And this makes it sound like we're asking everybody or the person next to us, have you finished eating? We've laid the table and now we need to clear the table. Clear. This word is lovely. Ear at the end. Don't add an R if you want a British accent. It's just clear, clear, clear the table. Now we're going to take a step away from food. We're just going to quickly talk about drink. Because drink, whether it's alcoholic or not alcoholic, we all need it. So we need to know maybe some useful expressions. I'll start from sipping. To sip on a drink means to take small sips very slowly, right? Sip. So I'm sipping on a drink, meaning I'm taking my time with it. But you could chug a drink. To chug, really quickly drink. When people are drinking, like partying and then playing drinking games, if someone is chugging a drink, people might cheer them and they might say, down it, right? Down it, drink it fast, down it, like tip it upside down. Finally, one for the road. Natural pronunciation. One for the road. For the. Notice how I do for the. Those two words are not important. They're function words. So we say them quickly. For the road. One for the road. To have one for the road means to have one more drink before we go home, before we finish. To have one for the road. And that is about all I have for today. Now I want you to share anything you want to share about food. Maybe some expressions and things I've mentioned today are similar in your language. Please write them in the comments below. Or maybe you have some more you'd like to add to this list. Of course, I can talk about flavours in the future and describing the taste of things. If this is something you'd like, please let me know and I will create a video about that. Let me know in the comments. And don't forget, if you want to work towards a British pronunciation, a modern RP pronunciation just like mine, you can work with me through WhatsApp and my online course, which you can join at etjenglish.com. And of course, if you enjoyed this lesson, I have loads more videos. Please feel free to watch them. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Again, as always, it's been a pleasure. I will see you next time. Cheers, guys. Bye.